Do you own nice things like motorcycles, bicycles, or other things with wheels that cost a lot of money? If you do, you probably want to keep them safe. After all, the last thing that you want to happen is to go use the restroom and come back to find your bike is missing. That's why today we're going to be talking about security chain. Cable locks can be very easily cut, and U-locks, while being secure, aren't very convenient. So, we'll be looking at 5 different security chains today. The first one is going to be a 5/16 chain from Abus. The second one is going to be a 3/8 from Abus. Then we have a 3/8 from Home Depot. Everbilt, I think, is the brand. Then we have a Pewag Chain, a 1/2 inch. And finally, a 1/2 inch version of this Abus chain. So, looking first at the 5/16 version of this Abus chain, it's got this nice sleeve to protect whatever you're trying to lock up. And then something unique about this Abus chain is it has a link that's bigger on one end, which enables you to fit the smaller link on the other end through it so that you can choose whatever kind of lock you think is going to be most effective. And because it's only one link, you have a little bit more versatility. So let's go ahead and put it to the test. I'm out in front of my garage, and we're going to try and cut the 5/16 Abus chain. And I'll just try to find a good way to position this. And then I will try to cut. And for reference, I weigh about 210 pounds, so there's a good amount of pressure being applied. Now obviously I wasn't able to cut this, but let me try to get it in focus, and you can see the marks that were made on the chain, really minimal marking. Now we're going to cut this chain with an angle grinder. We're going to see how long it takes. We'll compare this chain to our other chains. We're using an 18 volt Milwaukee, and I've got my timer and my safety equipment, so let's get going. I'll just grab my dental tool and we'll get to work. So accounting for my stops, starts, and errors, the 5/16 Abus chain lasted 22 seconds. And the next chain that we're going to look at is the 3/8 version of the Abus chain. And the reason why this particular chain is so long is because it's the one that I'm actually planning on using to lock up my bikes. And like all these Abus chains, it again has the link that fits inside of the other link. And of course it has this nice sleeve to protect things. Let's test it out. I went ahead and skipped trying to cut this chain as well as the chains moving forward, since I wasn't able to really make much of a dent in the smallest chain that we're looking at. Here we go. So again, accounting for stops, starts, and errors, the 3/8 inch Abus chain was able to withstand cutting for 36 seconds. Our next chain is going to be a Home Depot version of a security chain. It's got this yellow zinc plating on it. It's a 3/8 like the last Abus chain we tested, although it doesn't have the links that fit inside each other. I also couldn't find a version that came with the sleeve, and I'm guessing that this coating doesn't do a whole lot for scratch resistance. But let's go ahead and test it out. Because this chain is round instead of square, I did try cutting it with the bolt cutters, but I pretty much had the same result. So the 3/8 inch Everbilt Home Depot chain lasted 26 seconds of cutting. So not as long as the other 3/8 inch Abus chain, and I'm not sure if that's because it was round instead of square, or maybe the hardness wasn't quite as high, but whatever the case, it lasted more like the 5/16 Abus chain. Our next chain is going to be the half-inch version of the Abus chain. It's just like the other ones. It's got the links that fit inside each other, and it's also got the nice sleeve. So let's go ahead and test it. So the half-inch Abus chain, as expected, outperformed the other chains up to this point. Only marginally though, buying you an extra 10 to 15 seconds. We finally made it to the last chain on our list. The Pewag chain, it's got a half-inch thickness like the last Abus chain, does not fit inside each other. And you can actually purchase this with a sleeve if you want, but I didn't for the sake of this test, because it's an expensive chain. But let's see how it does. And there we have the Pewag chain coming in at 40 seconds. Now let's get back inside and discuss the results. We are back at my desk with all of our chain on the table here. We've got our 5/16 Abus, our 3/8 Abus, we've got our half-inch Abus, we've got our 3/8 Home Depot chain, and our half-inch Pewag chain. Before getting into recommendations and use cases, let's take a look at the results from our testing. We will be comparing our chains based on the time it took to cut through both sides of a link, the cost per foot, the cost per second of cutting, and the weight per foot of chain. Our first chain, the smallest of the group, the 5/16 Abus, or 8K as it lists on Amazon, took 22 seconds to cut through both sides of the link, costs $8.63 per foot or 39 cents per second, and weighs 0.98 pounds per foot. Our next chain is the 3/8 inch Everbilt, or the Home Depot chain. It took 26 seconds to cut, costs $8.60 per foot or 33 per second, and weighs 1.37 pounds. Next is the 3/8 inch Abus, or 10K. It took 36 seconds to cut, cost $10.49 per foot or 29 cents per second, and weighs 1.26 pounds. Next up is the half-inch Pewag chain. It took 40 seconds to cut. It costs $22.82 per foot or 57 cents per second, and weighs 2.22 pounds. Last up, the top performing chain, the half-inch Abus. It took 47 seconds to cut, costs $13.99 per foot or 30 cents per second, and weighs 2.13 pounds. So, which should you buy? Any security chain above a 5/16 is going to be pretty resistant to bolt cutters. Nothing will totally stop a determined thief, but these chains are a great deterrent. So no matter which you buy, you'll be getting the anti-theft benefits of having a security chain, which are that it takes a little more time to bypass and it's loud, drawing a lot of attention to a would-be thief. Also note on the cut testing, we were in a controlled setting, with the chain in a vise and not accounting for the time it took to cut away the sleeve. So while we got through the small chain in 22 seconds, it's of course going to take much more time than that to bypass your chain. Some things to consider are weight, the length you need, and the cost. These chains aren't light. This 3/8 inch chain at 10 feet weighs nearly 15 pounds, which is heavy when you're trying to wrap it around or through things. So if mobility or weight is important, maybe choose a smaller chain like this 5/16 Abus. But if you want the hardest to cut, go for the half-inch, either of these two chains here, or even bigger. Also, how long you need of a chain is a factor. These Abus chains, the first two, the 5/16 and the 3/8, come in 2, 6, and 10 foot lengths, and the half-inch Abus comes in 2 and 6 foot lengths. The Everbilt over here, I was only able to find in 3 foot lengths, And the Pewag chain you can actually buy by the foot, which is nice because you can get whatever length you need, but it's also the most expensive chain on the list. Which brings us to cost. How much you spend on a chain or other locking mechanisms should somewhat correlate to the value of what you're locking up. If you're locking up something relatively expensive, like a high-end bike or a motorcycle, maybe choose a thicker chain and just accept that it's going to be more expensive and heavy. But if you're going to be locking up in an expensive bike or something similar, maybe you choose the 5/16 inch chain because it's less expensive and you're still getting the benefits of having a security chain. So whatever you choose is up to you, but hopefully after this video, you now have a better idea of which chain will work best for your circumstance. And I'll of course put links for all of these chains in the description down below. I hope you found this information useful, and we'll see you next time.